Adam Schiff of California. Congressman, it's always a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Alex.
It's a big conversation. Let's first talk about the president addressing the nation tonight. What is the most important message in your assessment that he needs to deliver to the American public?
I think he needs to try to connect with the American people's fear about what happened in San Bernardino. I've talked to a number of people here in Los Angeles who feel this very acutely in a way they haven't felt, I think, since 9/11, that they're deeply worried about all of these mass shootings, but particularly those that are motivated by terror. They want to know what can be done about it. And the fact that these two may have flown under the radar, they may or may not have had contact with the terror organizations, and they may not have talked with any about it either in person or social media, makes it very difficult to address. I think that's a grave concern for people. And first and foremost, I think the president really has to acknowledge and empathize with what the country is going through, and then set out his vision for how we're going to attack this problem.
Let's take a listen together to part of what the president said yesterday in the weekly address. Here's that.
We are Americans. We will uphold our values in our free and open society. We are strong and we are resilient, and we will not be terrorized.
President Obama took a bit of a tougher rhetorical stance there on terror. Critics are suggesting that for the sake of reassuring the country, he needs to strike an even more aggressive tone. What is your take on his tone? Do you think he should sharpen it?
Well, I think we're going to have to sharpen our approach, and that should be conveyed as part of the president's message. When he was saying that over time we'll take care of this threat, we'll defeat this scourge. That's the critical phrase, though, over time. Do we have enough time? Are we proceeding fast enough to deprive ISIS of this space in Iraq and Syria, this place where they can draw resources, they can inspire people around the world? And I think we're going to have to be more aggressive in going after them. That won't be the end of ISIS, even when we eliminate their so-called state. They'll become more like al-Qaeda. There'll be a diffuse presence around the world, but it will dramatically reduce their ability to plot and plan attacks like Paris. So I think the president will need to be more aggressive in dealing with this problem. I think ultimately he'll have to consider things that he hasn't wanted to in the past, like the establishment of a safe zone or buffer zone, things that can dramatically change the conditions on the ground. We are making some slow progress, but the battlefield has been stalemated for a long time, and that's a real problem.
Well, here's what the chair of the Homeland Security Committee said just a short time ago about what he wants to hear from the president.
He has to get off this rhetoric. Make no mistake, this is not workplace violence. It's an act of terrorism. I wanted to tell the truth to the American people about what the threat nature really is and what the threat itself is, and that's radical Islamist terrorism.
Congressman, in trying to understand the president's measured approach, how much of it is an effort not to be alarmist and not give ISIS the satisfaction that this country is overly alarmed by that terror group's actions? I mean, is it part of his calculation? Should it be?
Well, it should certainly be part of his calculation that he doesn't want to cause the country to do things that would be counterproductive. And if we simply lash out at the Islamic community or we alienate our own Islamic community here at home, that's not productive. We have to view the Islamic community as a key ally in the fight against extremism, particularly here at home, where the community have worked closely with law enforcement to alert law enforcement when there's evidence someone is becoming radicalized. That's a very important component of the solution. So I think foremost, the president wants to make sure the country understands this is the strategy we need to defeat ISIS, both at home and abroad. But also, we need to make sure that we're not changing the character of the country, not ignoring the values of the country, not doing things that are counterproductive. And in terms of the chairman's comments about workplace violence, I think the other thing the president wants to make sure is he doesn't get too far out ahead of the facts. And in the first 24 hours, where there were reports that there was some kind of an argument at work, and then he returned with guns and shooting people, that was certainly one potential indication. And even now, as the Attorney General, I think, was saying earlier this morning, there is a lot we don't know about what motivated this couple. And so I think the president is being rightfully circumspect. There are big pieces of the motivation of these two still missing, even if we can tell at this point there was a radicalization at work.
But, Congressman, to underscore what you mentioned earlier about the sentiments of your constituents there, how far can a president go to allay the citizens' fears?
I think the president can do a great deal to inspire the country, to communicate that, yes, this is a problem, but let's put this problem in context. If you look at, for example, the number of mass shootings we've had around the country, far more people have been killed by everyday gun violence or by mass shootings that were on the basis of racism or on the basis of a whole host of other problems involving mental health. So I think the president can put this problem in context, but nonetheless, he needs to communicate a determination to eradicate this scourge of terrorism, to defeat ISIS, Al-Qaeda, but convey that this is going to be a long struggle. We need to be smart about how we do it, and we need to underscore that we are not going to change who we are. We're not going to turn into some people we don't want to be. Cracking down on the rights of Americans would, in effect, allow the terrorists to succeed in changing the nature of America.
Given the import of an Oval Office message, sir, do you expect any policy announcements from the president? For example, an executive order on gun control?
I don't think we'll hear about that in the statement tonight. I think the statement tonight, first and foremost, is going to be designed to reassure the public, to put these attacks in context, to talk about how the president is taking the fight to ISIS. I think that will be the paramount message tonight. But I do think the president may make an effort this evening or in the subsequent days to talk about the overall problem that America has with gun violence, where we are becoming known around the world for our mass shootings. That is not what America wants to be known for. And there is a lot that we can do about it. Obviously, the approach we need to take to terror cases is very different. But nonetheless, there is a great deal we can do to stop this now weekly, if not daily, occurrence where people going to the movie theater or the mall or to work have to be concerned about being mowed down by someone with high-caliber weapons with high-capacity ammunition clips.
And yet, as you are well aware, California has one of the strictest gun laws in the country, yet the attacks still happen there. Is there a law that could have been put in place that would have stopped the attack?
Well, there's no law, I think, that is going to stop all of these attacks, and this is a key point, because with respect to any particular attack, like in San Bernardino, you can say, well, this remedy that people are pushing wouldn't have affected this attack. That may be true, but it affects many other attacks, and there may be something that can be done that would have affected the San Bernardino attack. If the attack in San Bernardino was solely an ISIS-inspired act of terror, we are going to be combing through to determine, were there any signs that we missed about this couple that we should have seen? And hopefully we will find something that we can learn from to say, okay, we need to do a better job with this or that. We do have to acknowledge the possibility, though, that some of these attacks may not be preventable. If these people didn't communicate with others, didn't share their radicalization with others, didn't obtain the weapons illegally, flew under the radar, that's a very tough thing to spot or to stop.
Defense Secretary Ash Carter appeared before the House Armed Services Committee this past week, and here's part of what he said as the military engages more in fighting ISIS.
To build on that momentum, we're sending, on President Obama's orders and the chairman's and my advice, Special Operations Forces personnel to Syria to support the fight against ISIL.
And that, as you know, is in addition to an earlier boost in Special Ops Forces a few weeks ago. Do you think an increase in U.S. forces there will have an impact on domestic security?
I think it does have an impact on domestic security. There are a lot of questions about whether we're going to have enough special operators to move the needle on the battlefield. But yes, depriving ISIS of the luxury of being forces to attack us does have an impact on our security here at home. And if we can deprive, and when we do deprive ISIS of their territory, that takes a lot of the inspiration away, even for the homegrown radicals. Right now, ISIS likes to convey an aura of invincibility. They like to convey that they are a state, they are a caliphate. This is very inspiring to people who have been radicalized. And to the degree that you can take away that aura of invincibility, deprive them of any kind of land holdings or so-called caliphate, that does have an impact on our security very much here at home. And we're not immune from a Paris-style attack. They aspire to attack us that way. If they're given more time and the luxury to plan and plot, they may have the capability of doing that. So it has a very direct link to our security.
Do you want more boots on the ground, sir?
Well, I want us to do something with our allies around the world to change the dynamic. I don't want to see us with another massive occupation of a Muslim country. I think that's the wrong approach. To me, the lesson of Afghanistan and Iraq is that we can send in massive numbers of troops, we can win the battles, but unless we deal with the political problems there, they don't stay won. And we don't want to have to occupy these countries indefinitely, and that means we need to do more to address the political problems. And the political problems both in Iraq and Syria are you have a large group of disenfranchised Sunnis who either A, have no place in the Iraqi government, they're not meaningfully part of the Iraqi security, they feel run by a Tehran-led regime, Shia regime in Baghdad, or across the border in Syria. They feel they're disenfranchised by a Alawite regime that is barrel bombing their populations. And until they feel they have a stake in their own governance and security, ISIS is always going to have a space in both those countries.
California's Congressman Adam Schiff, as always a pleasure, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex.